So I'm going to continue talking about Tozan's 5 ranks, and today is the 3rd rank. So I'll read the verse. This rank is called the absolute containing coming, or sometimes it's translated as resurgence of the absolute. And the verse goes like this: hard though it may be in the midst of mu, or in the midst of nothing, there is a way free from dust. Today's ability to avoid the forbidden name surpasses yesterday's most eloquent discussion. So I'll get to talking about the lines a little later. But the absolute containing coming, which is coming back from realizing the absolute state, from great death, and behaving from the understanding that form is emptiness. So in this stage, the students realize the experience of dwelling in no place and yet functioning in the world. In other words, not constrained by anything. Maizumi Roshi, my teacher, often said that a clear realization by itself is of little use. One can see clearly, but if one had not put that clear vision into one's life, it's not of any use. When this clear insight or wisdom begins to function in one's life, it appears as compassion. Now, the Diamond Sutra says, dwelling in no place, raise the Bodhi mind. The Bodhi mind is the mind that seeks for enlightenment, not only for oneself, but for everybody. That's the Bodhisattva vow, of receiving all creations in a heart of unconditional love. So dwelling in no place, raise the Bodhi mind. In the year 660, while carrying wood in the marketplace, Weneng, the future 6th patriarch of Zen, heard a monk chanting from the Diamond Sutra. Dwelling in no place, raise the Bodhi mind. That's where this comes from, the Diamond Sutra. And Weneng had a spontaneous, deep realization, which is quite remarkable, given that he was an illiterate wood gatherer who sold the wood in the marketplace in order to care for himself and his widowed mother. So dwelling in no place means that nothing is fixed, including all of your self-images. That's what we call emptiness. No fixed thing, no dwelling place. Not even a square inch of ground upon which to stand, as the identity of relative and absolute states. Seeing the absolute is not yet enlightenment. Seeing emptiness is not yet enlightenment. It is only in this state of realization of emptiness that your true nature can be revealed in all of its many glorious aspects. Weneng was not satisfied with his awakening and told himself, I seek the great teaching. Why should I stop halfway? But logic doesn't reach it, because in logic, we're manipulating objects and trying to give them some reality that we can grab onto. Because we have not developed the confidence and trust in ourselves, we continue to look for a flash of insight or sign outside ourselves. After you have exhaustively searched every nook and cranny you will find what you have been seeking in your own heart. But in order to access the openness of your heart, you have to shed the skin of your old habit-ridden self and enter into the unknown, which is the darkness where we cannot distinguish familiar shapes and familiar sounds. In this unknown realm, we cannot rely on any of our old tricks for maintaining separation, which is the actual cause of our confusion. When we let go of the small, separate self, we can rest in the bosom of the true self. When we accept all reality just as it is, the struggle's over. That acceptance includes compassion for ourselves just as we are. It is a deep surrender of our whole being to the simple truth of all-embracing love. Dwelling in no place means being free in each situation in life, not being constrained by former opinions and ideas. It means being able to flow according to circumstances that present themselves. And these circumstances always depend on the time, the place, the people involved, and the intensity of the situation. So being able to adapt without holding to fixed opinions is the mark of the person who is dwelling in no place. There's a wisdom that Hakuin assigned to this rank. It's called marvelous observing wisdom, or the wisdom of discernment. There's a koan in our miscellaneous koans. Priest Taigen of Sogen Temple in Bizen province did further studies visiting priest Gyo in Yoshu province. When Taigen was about to leave, priest Gyo said, "Since I have nothing to give you, I would like to make this as my present." Then he picked up a piece of burning charcoal from the hearth with a pair of fire tongs and gave it to Taigen. Priest Taigen did not know how to receive it. He stamped out of the room and locked himself up in one of the rooms there for 7 days. And he went to see Priest Gyo again to say goodbye, and Gyo did the same thing. This time, however, Priest Taigen, with no hesitation in taking care of the matter, Gyo approved it. Priest Taigen could not be ungrateful and refuse the present, nor could he receive it without burning himself. So what did he do? When you're challenged, you can defend yourself or you can dance. We all know about being defensive, but what about dancing? The readiness to dance frees you from your karma. Sometimes we think we're dancing, but what we're really doing is stepping on our partner's toes. In the verse of the Jeweled Mirror Samadhi, it states, "The wooden man starts to sing and the stone woman gets up dancing." That's real freedom. In case 60 of the Book of Equanimity, it's an encounter between Venerable Master Isan and the nun, Ryotetsuma, and they're old close friends. And Ryotetsuma arrives at Isan's place, and Isan said, "Old cow, you've come." That might sound like an insult, but cow is an ox. You know, the character is an ox. You know what the ox is? It's your true nature, right? So, old cow, you've come. So you've come. Your true nature is here. And Ryotetsuma says, "There's a big feast on Mount Tai tomorrow, Osho. Are you going?" Well, it so happens that Mount Tai is many days' walk from Isan's place. She's saying there's a feast on Mount Tai tomorrow. You want to go? They couldn't get there in a week. It's like me saying to you, let's have a picnic on the moon tomorrow. And so what did Isan do? He just lay down. And what did the Read Testament do? She just walked away. Now that's a wonderful dance between two old friends. So let's look at the first line. Hard though it may be, in the midst of nothing, there's a way free from dust. Hard though it may be, in the midst of Mu, Joshu's Mu, there's a way free from dust. This line says you're always aware of the empty nature of everything that arises. So, how do you not fall into the traps of life, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune? In case 43 of the Blue Cliff Record, a monk in all earnestness asked Master Tozan, how do you avoid the discomfort of hot and cold? And Master Tozan said, go to that place where there is no hot and cold. And the monk said, where is that place? And the master said, when you're hot, be hot, and when you're cold, be cold. There's a way free from dust. I've told this story 100 times, but I'm going to tell it again. When I was working at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, we were developing an apparatus that would allow a deep sea diver to remain warm. And we were testing it in a tank of very cold seawater, in a tank that was 40 feet deep, and they circulated cold seawater through it. And I was a subject in the test. And so they put probes all over my body to measure my core temperature and temperature of my skin and blood pressure and other variables. So, since I wasn't wearing a wetsuit when I went into this tank, it was very cold. I was wearing the apparatus that was connected to the breathing mask on my scuba gear. And when I was in the water, I remembered this koan of Tozan, and I said to myself, what's cold? What does it mean to be cold? So I just spent all of my time observing what it meant to be cold. I looked at every little detail. It was interesting, you know. If I didn't breathe or move, I wasn't cold. Of course, I had to breathe, but when I breathed, the bubbles would pop around my face, and where they popped, it felt cold. If I moved, I felt cold water going under my arms, and it was cold. So with each breath, my whole universe was feeling the cold penetrating my whole body. And most of the subjects had to leave the water after about 20 minutes because their body temperature dropped too low. But I was sitting there on the bottom of this tank. And by the way, it's easy to do Zazen in water. You can do that for hours. And I was sitting there concentrating on the cold. And after an hour, they finally told me to come up. My body temperature had barely dropped. And after that experience, I didn't get cold for the longest time. And I really understood Tozan's hot and cold. Just really be cold. Really be hot. Who's hot and who's cold? Forget the self and just be cold. That's a way to be free from dust. I remember Yugen's here. He told a story about our dear departed Sangha member Soten, who was a world famous rock climber. And Yugen was consulting with him. He was going for a rock climb in the backcountry or something. And he told him what he was taking, and Soten told Yugen, he says, you don't need to Take this or that or that. And he said, your sleeping bag, you don't need to take that. I said, my sleeping bag, I'm going to be up in the mountains. It's going to be cold. And he says, yeah, just lie on the ground, look at the stars and shiver. Something like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So he really understood Tozan's hot and cold too. He wasn't encumbering himself with anything. There's another miscellaneous koan that speaks to the line of this verse. It says, empty-handed, yet holding a hoe. Can you play a guitar without using your hands or sing a song without using your voice? If you're skilled and totally engaged without thinking, you can do it. You forget your hands, you forget your voice. You just play, you just sing. In the midst of mu, you forget yourself and you're free from dust. Master Kazan wrote this poem. Seeking it oneself with empty hands, you return with empty hands. In that place where fundamentally nothing is acquired, you really acquire it. Excuse me. So the second line says, today's ability to avoid the forbidden name. What is the forbidden name? This line is telling us to don't even raise the thought of this is my true self, or I'm enlightened, or anything like that. Of course, the forbidden name is in our culture is the name of God. In some traditions, you can't even speak the name of God or write the name of God. In Buddhism, a synonym for God could be true nature, true self, the absolute, thusness. If one mentions it as if it's an object to understand, right there it's missed. In case 48 of the Blue Cliff, or the Book of Equanimity, presents a part of the Vimalakirti Sutra, where the Bodhisattva Vimalakirti questions numerous other bodhisattvas about entering the non-dual Dharma gate until he gets to the great wisdom bodhisattva Manjushri. Vimalakirti asks Manjushri, what about a bodhisattva entering the non-dual Dharma gate? Manjushri replied, as I understand it, with regard to all dharmas, there are no words or speech, no revelation or knowledge, and it is separate from all conversation. This is entering the non-dual Dharma gate. Thereupon Manjushri questioned Vimalakirti, saying, all of us bodhisattvas have each had our say, Venerable Sir. Now you should expound about a bodhisattva entering the non-dual Dharma gate. Vimalakirti maintained silence. He didn't say a word. And Vimalakirti's response is called his thunderous silence. It shakes heaven and earth and avoids the forbidden name. As the Buddha said that he's taught for 40 years and he hasn't uttered a single word. Of course, there's volumes of sutras attributed to him. So how do we take that? Mention another case. Case 70, Hakujo asked his students, how do you speak with your mouth shut? And Isan said, I ask you to speak instead, teacher. And Hakujo said, it's not that I refuse to tell you, but I'm afraid that afterward I would be bereft of descendants. So Isan did answer the question. See? He said, how do you speak with your mouth shut? And I would ask you to speak instead, teacher. He did. He did speak with his mouth shut. And he did not get trapped by Hyakujo's question. And Hyakujo's final remark is what we call praised by criticism, actually. Hyakujo thought, well, I would be bereft of descendants if I told you, but actually he's praising Isan, which is kind of a Zen twist on words. So we say, if you, once the rabbit is caught, you forget the trap. So when you are awakened, you let go of all the devices that you've used. When you cross the river, you don't carry the boat with you on the land, you leave it in the water. So in the book of Equanimity 39, a monk asked Joshu, your student has just entered the monastery, please instruct me. And Joshu said, have you finished your rice gruel? And the monk replied, I finished eating. And Joshu said, then wash your bowls. On one level, this koan is about taking care of the details of life. Those of you who cook for your families know that the meal is over only after the kitchen is clean, not after the last bite is eaten. We leave a lot of things half done. In the preface to this case, it says, when food comes, stuff the mouth. When sleep comes, close the eyes. When you eat, there's nothing in the universe but eating. And that eating covers heaven and earth. When we clean, we clean. But there's also more going on with this koan. When Joshu said, have you finished your rice gruel? He's not just talking about rice gruel, he's talking about the monk's practice. He says, have you accomplished anything at all? And the monk said, yes, I have eaten, I have. And Joshu says, well then, wash it away, don't hold on to it. Let go of that. Joshu's telling the monk not to cling to anything, least of all, transcendent experiences. They will cause your life to stagnate faster than anything else. So avoid the forbidden name. The Tibetan Buddhist nun Pema Chodron, in her book, The In-Between State, said, it takes some training to equate complete letting go with comfort. But in fact, nothing to hold on to is the root of happiness. There's a sense of freedom when we accept that we're not in control. So let's look at the last line, surpasses yesterday's most eloquent discussion. See? So the ability to avoid the forbidden name surpasses yesterday's most eloquent discussion. What's yesterday's most eloquent discussion? My talk is yesterday's most eloquent discussion. In the Book of Equanimity, case 45, Great Master Emyo Tokusan addressed the assembly saying, exhaust the end, and there's instant attainment. The mouths of all Buddhas of the 3 times might as well hang on the wall. Now there's a person who roars with laughter. When you know this one, the essence of your exhaustive study is completed. So if you can exhaust your thoughts, the mouths of the Buddhas of the 3 times might as well hang on the wall. So take all the sayings, everything the Buddhas have ever said, and put them on the wall like a picture. And there's no way that they can even express it. Dogen's teacher, Tendo Nyojo, said the entire body is a mouth hanging in the air. When Tozan said that the mouths of all the bodies, all the Buddhas, when Tozan said the mouths of all the Buddhas of the 3 times might as well be hanging on the wall, he's saying that even the Buddhas cannot express this exhausted end. When Tendo Nyojo says the entire body is a mouth hanging in the air, he's saying you're expressing it all the time. It can't be expressed, and you're expressing it all the time. As soon as you think you've grabbed it, it's moved. And yet you're constantly expressing it. Why? Tozan said there's a person who roars with laughter, then he laughs. Oh. When you know this, when you know the one who's laughing, the essence of your exhaustive study is completed. So when the entire body and mind are facing the wall is facing the wall. The entire body and mind is a mouth hanging in the air. When you speak, use your whole body and mind. If your body and mind are the entire body and mind hanging in space, it is the body and mind of universal emptiness. And if not, it's just some kind of idea, some kind of concept, a false basis that depends on your own image of who you are. So in this rank, even though one has experienced the solitary peak, gazing at the sky, she is in the center of the market, engaging in all kinds of activities. This rank emphasizes penetrating into the absolute, but not dwelling there, as if in an ice cave. Here, you let your situation enter you fully, whether it's joy, bereavement, or danger. If you allow the afflictions to advance and confirm you, your body and mind drop off, and the birds are chirping. Usually people think of death as an escape from fear of heat and cold. In Shakespeare's plays, Cymbeline, when the heroine Imogen dies, her brother, his name is Guiderius, sings, "Fear no more the heat of the sun, nor furious winter's rages." In Zen, we also think of death as an escape into heat and cold. But from the great death comes a great life, where we practice free of worry, whether it's in the scorching summer or in the frigid winter. The point of this rank is not to overcome others, but to bring forth the heart of the fathomless void and present the appropriate topic or take the appropriate action decisively. Of course, based upon compassion, which is how the heart the fathomless void appears in the world. I love this verse of Master Tozan, which he wrote at the end of his life. He said, "Empty-handed I entered the world. Barefoot I leave it. My coming, my going, two simple happenings that got entangled." Our lives are one long entangled vine. How to be free from entanglements? You know the answer. Just be entangled. So I think I'll end there.